Welcome to the Lost Vet podcast, where we're helping you to get back to your passion and purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Melodie Chan, and in today's episode of Destination People, Dr. Alycia Chrenek joins me in talking about repairs. Now, some of us might get really excited and think this is actually a diversion and a technical discussion on repairing injuries in animals, but we are going to be talking about repair in the context of communication and how learning how to repair in this sense helps to give us control over situations, change situations, and build stronger relationships. Have a listen. Welcome back to the pod, Alycia.
Hello, thank you.
One idea I wanted to really roll around with you today is this idea of repair. And the funny thing in the context of veterinary clinics, when you say repair, immediately is people thinking, oh, what, laceration repair? Is it a wound repair? Is it a bone repair? What are we doing? But in today's discussion, I would actually like to talk about repair in the context of communication, because it's a term that you've used in our conversations before. And I thought that would be a great one to talk about today. So why don't we start there? Why don't you give me a bit of a definition in your mind of repair in the context of communication? What does that mean?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think it humanizes us all, and it brings in this basic understanding that we're not going to get everything right. And when we have a day where you know that maybe you've said something that wasn't quite correct, or something's happened that you come home and you're just not feeling good about it, that there's still something that we can do about it. And that's where the repair really of whatever that communication flaw was is everything. Um, and that going through those conversations, you're also opening it that you can forgive yourself. You're creating trust with your team because they know that, well, Alycia admitted that she made a mistake. I can make a mistake and the world isn't going to fall apart. So I think it just brings that anxiety down a little bit when everybody's on the same page that we're not going to be perfect every single time. We will repair this as we go. And so that's why I say that repair is everything. And what it comes back to is really, if once you recognize that something hasn't gone the direction that you want to, you start the conversation and you open that up and say, you know what, today when I said that, that wasn't fair or that wasn't incorrect. I apologize. How can we move on? And you really open up that trust. I think it relates a lot to Brene Brown's vulnerability because you are opening up that. And when she talks about vulnerability, she also talks about how that's the foundation of communication and how that really is what builds the trust and psychological safety. Because, like we were talking, is if I can admit that I'm wrong and I made a mistake, then you're allowed to too. And so it just levels the playing field, I think, for everybody.
Yeah. It's a hard thing
It's very hard.
saying that we've did do something incorrectly or we could have done it better. And I think it's also acknowledging it within this field as veterinarians, as technicians, even in clinics. And if you are a high achiever, you kind of wear that badge of, no, I get 99% of things right, if not 100. Or you fixate on those things, and it's a hard thing to take that breath and say it in a way that's genuine.
Yes. Yeah. And it has to be genuine. You have to mean it and feel it and want to, because they can tell. I can tell when somebody is apologizing or even when they're complimenting me and it doesn't come off as genuine. You're like, what's happening here, right? We are beings that can understand and interpret those languages that are nonverbal. I think veterinarians or the veterinary staff are probably better at that than a lot of the general population because we're reading it from our animals all the time. So you have to mean it and you have to be genuine if you're going to go down that path. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It it is hard. And when I do these in my presentations, I have a quote that pops up that nobody has ever died by choking on their pride. Because you do have to
Yeah.
to step off your stool a little bit or your pedestal, and realize that we're human and we make mistakes.
Yeah. And I really see this taking hold as part of a team culture when, again, the leaders really model this behavior. It's I think sometimes people want to be careful in that they're worried, oh, if I admit these things too much, then people think I'm insecure. And
Right.
and I've seen situations where that becomes the default of, again, this is that fine line, I think, that the
Yeah.
perfectionists that we
Yeah.
are and our type A's walk, because we can be so hard, and we actually will sort of self-flagellate or self-berate and just say,
Yeah.
oh, I did all these things wrong, when it's, as I'm just talking out loud, it's we're talking about the things, the doing, the work
Yeah.
that we've done wrong, and maybe not taken that time to acknowledge the people and the behaviors of
Yes.
ourselves that
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
perhaps not modeling to the best, to be a better person tomorrow in that sense.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're 100% on there, is that um, there is a balance. You can't apologize for everything because at some point the job needs to be done, or uh, again, some of it is just human. But there are times, and I think you'll know within yourself as you get comfortable with this, that you know which ones are the ones that you should go back for, and the ones that maybe not. I'll use an example with my own kids because I use this because mom guilt is a thing, and I will often afterwards think, oh man, like was I too hard? Was I expecting too much? What was going on? And so I use this again, like I said, as a bit of forgiveness for myself. Is like, if I really feel like I need to that it was wrong, then I
Hmm.
should repair it. And
Yeah.
so before I do these conversations with my kids of, mom was wrong when she said that, this is a situation, and try to explain it. I have on like one shoulder of, yes, we should apologize and have the repair. The other shoulder is like, it is my job to make them functioning members of society. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. So if I want them to use their utensils at the table, it is my job to teach them to do that, right? I can't say sorry every time I get mad at them for,
Right.
using their hands. Um, but I can't, the big ones where I know that I wasn't emotionally regulated and
Mm.
I was expecting them to be emotionally regulated, those are the times that I go in and have a conversation. I say, mom's reaction was not appropriate. This is why, and this is what I was expecting. That again, that big and, not
Yeah.
but, and
Yeah.
this is what I
Yeah.
was expecting from you. So,
Yeah.
because usually there was a reason why I responded that way. Maybe it was the inappropriate because there's something else going on in my day or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two little people on my shoulder saying you
Yeah.
have to make them functioning members of society. You also have to be fair and emotionally regulated.
Yeah.
So, um,
And in
yeah,
those clinic settings, I see the potential for that to happen again in those highly tense situations,
yes,
whether it's an emergency situation or the clinic is slammed, and you've
yes,
got people in
yeah,
the waiting room, you've got all the exam rooms or stalls or what have you,
yeah,
um, and that's again that setup and context
yes,
for where somebody can just lean really into their
yeah,
more extreme behaviors. And I think, again, as you've mentioned in the past, it's how you handle it after, when you've just had a more quiet moment of reflection, or even
yeah,
just as a team lead, and yeah, it didn't quite go as you expected, or the
yeah,
surgery, if and you're just going, well, that didn't quite go according
yeah,
to plan.
exactly, right? Yeah, I
Uh,
I remember being on an externship, and we were doing a very complicated, it's on a horse, very complicated surgery. I believe it was serous cord repair.
mhm,
And so there's a lot of blood vessels in the area. There's a ton of scar tissue because it's been going on forever. And the surgeon, as she was trying to debride away, um, nicked an artery. And so this horse started to bleed. And it was a significant bleed.
mhm.
Um, and so she's asking for her tools, and like she's visibly stressed. Her demeanor is, she is focused on what this is, so she's not thinking about how to politely ask for the clamp.
Right.
Right, it's like,
Yeah.
give me
Yeah.
the clamp.
Yeah.
um and afterwards, I really respected her because she came back and she's like, just so you know, it wasn't you, it was the situation. And that's all she had to say. And I was
Wow.
like, right, and that helped me for down the road with other surgeons that I worked with, or in other situations, or even with my staff that I was working with. Sometimes it's a stressful situation. And am I dealing with it correctly? No. Right? But afterwards, can you just know and trust me that it wasn't you? It's the situation.
Yeah.
We have to get through this together. And I think that builds a huge amount of trust. That
Yeah.
and and I know if the surgeon gets mad, or something happens, it's okay. It's a crappy situation, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to save a life.
Yeah.
And then after that, we can go out and have a beer, or whatever that debrief is.
Yeah.
Um, but again, she's human, and I really respect her for just saying that simply. It wasn't you, it was the situation. So, okay, I can
Yeah.
take that.
And that
So,
goes such a long way because,
hmm,
again, most of us veterinarians are wired to think and go through in our scenario. The story I'm telling myself is that
right,
I must have done something wrong
right, yeah, yeah.
for whatever reason.
That's the
That's the
human
wiring in our
default.
head.
The human default.
Yeah.
And that's why we've made so much progress. But we also have to understand that that is not always correct.
Hmm.
So,
And I think just that simple act of the surgeon speaking to you that
hmm,
way, and just that one phrase, and how even when you said it, I could just feel that settling,
right.
and your heart rate drops, and it's such a simple but powerful thing to do for somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. And if you think of the assistant in that room, um, and this is where these things don't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a dissertation on what happened. Like, it was a very simple sentence, um, and it means that I'm happy to go in with them in the OR the next time. And I can imagine in situations with our technicians, or whoever's assisting us, they're thinking, oh no, now we've got another stressful surgery. This is going to be an hour of hell. And so slowly they look forward to it less and less and less, and becomes an environment or a culture that isn't fun to be in.
Hmm.
Where when you give that permission to vent and be real,
Yeah.
yeah, then you can go forward. It sets a total different tone and culture for the next time you walk into that operating room.
Yeah. And I think that also speaks to, especially in today's age where we tend to communicate so much via text and
Yes.
just written messages, just creating that environment and that culture within the clinic, within your teams, where you can verbally in the moment, or as soon thereafter, actually just saying something like
Yeah.
that to somebody, whether it's over the phone or face to face, that that actually has so much more weight than a text. That being
Yeah.
said, I mean, if again you maybe go from one thing to another and
Yeah.
it's you're slammed, just quickly sending a note. I'm actually finding sometimes just that quick audio memo, like a voice
Yes. Yeah.
memo, also changes things too, because it's sort of nice just to hear the tone.
Yeah.
But again, I think being mindful of how the medium we're using to communicate what it is
Yes.
that we're wanting to do, especially if it's a repair.
Yes, I
discussion, I
agree.
think,
Yeah.
or just a repair statement. It doesn't have to be a discussion,
Right.
but, just that act.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And that the voice memos, the and this is maybe a whole other topic for another session, is how like the media that we use to communicate um makes a difference, because you can read into the tone, or you can distract from the tone. It can be taken so many ways, but voice memos are a little bit easier for that.
Yeah.
um and yeah, any form of communication is usually a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But you don't have to overthink it. It can
Yeah.
be uh, very simple.
Well, that's great. I really appreciated this. It's always nice to unpack these simple statements further, because I know in some of our communications, you've mentioned the word repair, and I really appreciated getting the your view and sort of how you
Right.
approach it and what your thoughts on it are. So thank you.
Thank you. I love talking about it. It helps me
Great.
forgive myself.
Always an important thing.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Alycia.
Thank you.
When we talk about the concept of repair as it relates to communication, it's an opportunity to admit that we made a mistake. It also gives us permission to realize that we are not perfect, for those of us that are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists, as I like to refer to myself. And it gives you the power and the control to change things for the better in the future, because it allows you to create an environment where you can have an open and honest discussion with somebody that you may have impacted in a negative way with the way that you behaved. As we were talking through this idea of repair, um, I had the realization that it's often easy for us to think about talking about the tasks that we actually did wrong, that we would do better, or that could have been done better, not necessarily wrong. And it's often so much more difficult to talk about and admit about the behaviors that we ourselves are exhibiting that really don't align with who we want to be. And that's the part of the repair process that is so important. It's also about being vulnerable. And we talked about afterwards, one quote from Brene Brown says that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a source of courage, connection, and creativity. And in the context of this topic, it's really about that connection and thinking about if you were on the other end, on the receiving end of somebody coming to you and saying, "Hey, I'm really sorry about how I spoke to you earlier. That was not called for, or realized that was the situation and not you," in that example that Alycia shared. Just that simple sentence, that simple act can go so far in helping to diffuse a situation and also help to further build. And that's that whole idea of repairing. It's not unlike repairing a wound, it's not unlike repairing a house. You're helping to strengthen things that were not ideal, not broken, or sorry, were broken and needed to be patched up and strengthened. And that's really a great way to help forgive ourselves as well, because we are able to share this, tell somebody that they they were on the receiving end of something that was maybe not fair, and you can talk about how you will do things differently in the future and how you can do that together. So repairing is such a powerful and sometimes just a simple thing to do. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. Until next time.